Uh, I'd just like to start because, very often what happens is when you are all from an SME sector, okay, you have to say, oh, big companies do this, small companies do this, medium companies do this. And at least what I have learned over 25 years is there are only good and bad companies. There are very bad large companies, there are very good small companies. So really, I think what you have to ask yourself is not, are you small, are you medium, or are you large? But are you good or are you not good? I think that's sort of the defining aspect of, there's so many remotes floating around. Okay, so I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. Brilliant. Okay. The topic given was targeting the marketing message, reducing cost, increasing effectiveness. And actually there's only a one-line answer to that. If you get your targeting right, you will increase effectiveness. If you increase effectiveness, you will reduce cost. Anurag has been talking a lot about television. I'd like all of you who have watched television between 7:30 and 10 p.m. in the last week to raise your hands. All right, that's terrific. Because wherever I do it, it's like 2%, 3%. So there's 50% of money being spent on a reality which is 20 years old. That reality was created at the time of Doordarshan, at the time of Mahabharata, at the time of Ramayana. When you got TRPs of 80%, you could go out on a Sunday morning without traffic because the other 10% who were not watching it were on the road and 90% were sitting glued to their televisions. And that has changed. We know it has changed. We don't need marketeers to tell us. We know our own habits. They have changed. If 4 people in this room raise their hand out of 200 people, and 8,000 crores is being spent on an outdated concept called prime time, just look in the mirror. Look at your own habits. Do you rush home at 7:30 in the evening and switch on the television? Do you get up in the morning and grab all your 6 newspapers? I am still old-fashioned. I get 6 newspapers every day. And I'm trying to read them till I get home at 9:30 at night. They're in my car. They're all over the place. I will carry one. I said, not the economic times. I'll carry it with me to my office and say, I will read at lunchtime. There's a paper called Mint that I like. I will read in the car on the way back. But guess what happens? In the car, I'm on my BlackBerry. So, even traditional outdoor, which everybody is a big fan of in India, from telecom to auto. I had a telecom client who only believed in traditional outdoor and not out-of-home television. As it happens, my office was in Prabhadevi, which is the center of Bombay. One set of guys came in from town, the others from the suburbs. And they all sat there and said, so tell us your view on outdoor. I said, why don't we do the other way around? What outdoor did you notice on your way to my office? You guys have crisscrossed Bombay today. And they said, we were on a BlackBerry. I said, so why do you assume that you're the only guys on your BlackBerry and your telephone, and everybody else has got their windows open, leaning out and saying, wow, there's that new outdoor site which has got telecom per second billing. So actually, if we just observe our own habits, you can just find out that we are changing. And the average age of this room is 35, not 25. I take the average age up. No, you're not yet. But the point is that if that is the reality, guess what's happening to people younger than us? So I don't think that a statistician needs to tell us what's happening. The truth is there are no new metrics in a large-scale format. And therefore it becomes easy and convenient for people not to target well. And because they don't target well, they don't get effectiveness. And because they don't get effectiveness, a medium, however cheap it may be, becomes very expensive. So I just wanted to start with that. The other thing is that in times of recession, most people, most bad companies, large, medium, or small, tend to avoid decision making because it's much easier not to take a decision. There's a friend of mine, and you may have heard this from me, from my favorite story. I've stolen it from this guy. He operates out of the US. He actually did research with 100 chief executives, and he calls it the FUD factor, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And he says, whenever something like this happens, people cramp up with this FUD factor. And he's done technical research to show that the FUD factor releases something called dopamine. And dopamine actually is what is used for psychiatric patients. So in a sense, if you go to the psychologist's definition of insanity, it is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results. And that is what we tend to do. We tend to do it in bad times because you just say, I'm sure if I just spend a little more less, but I don't change the way I talk, something will happen. Guess what? Nothing happens. Because unless you shed and move on, you're not going to make a difference.